Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Josh Hennig.
Thursday edition of Game Night on 97.3 ESPN as the Eagles, yes, I see over my shoulder, they are preparing for their open practice tonight at Lincoln Financial Field. Phillies have the night off, thank the Lord, because they definitely need a night off. The way this entire last several days is gone. I mean, you thought one day off was enough, but apparently it wasn't. So we'll get into my perspective on the Phillies, also get into some thoughts on the Eagles, and more coming up here on 97.3 ESPN. As always, you guys can join the conversation, 609-403-0973. Also, your DMs into 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. And I want to bring back a conversation that Mike Gill and I had during the 3 o'clock hour on the Sports Bash, which is when you are looking at the Philadelphia Eagles heading into this year. We have done so much conversating, so much talking, so much hyper analyzing of Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni that we have not asked enough questions about the rest of the team. Because, listen, you can have all the opinions you want about the Eagles head coach. You can have all the opinions you want about the quarterback, Jalen Hurts. But at the end of the day, all of it doesn't really matter. Because it's the team around those two men that actually matters even more. When you think about what is going on with this organization coming off of the year they had last year, look, you can blame people and their leadership all of you want. But I got to tell you guys, when you think about the Eagles, there are 5 players not named Hurts, people who are not named Nick Sirianni, who I believe are going to be key to this team having success this year. Mike Gill gave you his list in the 3 o'clock hour. I'll give you my list right now. Now, him and I both agree on number 1. Number 1 is Jalen Carter, not Jalen Hurts, Jalen Carter, because Jalen Carter was drafted in the first round. He was supposed to be number 1 overall, wasn't for the legal issues he had off the field, which, as we came to find out, those legal issues were a little bit overhyped and exaggerated. But his first year in Philadelphia, he was great until he hit the rookie wall. Now it's year 2. He has to go out there and show us that he is the player that he was drafted to be, the player that he is expected to be. It is more than fair to look at him straight on and say, if you don't play well, Jalen Carter, this team is not making a deep playoff run, because it's his job to replace Fletcher Cox. You could argue that during his prime, part of his prime, by the way, being the year that the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017, there was a stretch of time where Fletcher Cox was considered the number 2 interior defensive lineman in all of football behind Aaron Donald. There are some that could make the argument that Fletcher Cox could be a Pro Football Hall of Famer. The man has 70 sacks from a position that does not generate that stat usually. And on top of that, 173 quarterback hits. And when you look at his career, you realize the majority of those numbers were produced from 2015 to 2022. The man, for a stretch of time, was one of the most unstoppable forces in all of football. During those stretch of years, he averaged 16 quarterback hits per season. And he played an average of 16 games per season during that stretch. That means that he got a quarterback hit per game. Per game, he was getting to the quarterback. Jalen Carter has a big shoe to fill right there. He is the heir apparent of Fletcher Cox. He has to go out there and dominate, because when you have a dominant interior defensive lineman, it makes everyone else's job easier. The reason why Jim Schwartz's defense was able to run the NASCAR package by kicking one of the defensive ends to the inside was because Fletcher was that great of a player. Jalen Carter can make Josh Sweat, Bryce Huff, the linebackers, the defensive backs, all their jobs way easier, but he has to play to the level that we know he's capable of for an entire season, not just half the season. My number 2 player, not named Jalen Hurts, has to have a good year in order for the Eagles to be successful. Josh Hennick here on 97.3 ESPN FM, your home for Eagles football in South Jersey. Eagles preseason game number 1 next Friday night. Hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN. Merrill Reese, Pro Football Hall of Fame inductee this weekend, and Mike Quick on the call. Number 2, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. We all know that the Eagles' secondary was a problem last year, and it wasn't just because of injuries. It was because they were just too young. And I can't get around what Darius Slay, what he told Chris Long on the Green Light podcast about the difficulty playing with inexperienced and young safeties in a secondary like he did last year.
Corners is really only good as his safety as he communicates to him. Sometimes that's just how it is. Because if my safety makes me understand what I'm doing and gets me in the right position, because we don't hit the calls, we're always on the side. Definitely if you're the far corner. Them young guys trying to come in, they just like, what's the play? I got the play. I'm doing my job. It's more like, hey, what's the call? They're looking at the other, like, because I'm not getting it. They get tunnel vision. It was real difficult.
C.J. Gardner-Johnson's the opposite. He's experienced. He's communicative. He is someone who puts it out there for everyone to hear. Here's the play. Here's the down. Here's the situation. Darius Slay has joked that C.J. Gardner-Johnson talks so much, doesn't understand how he talks so much. If C.J. plays at the level that we think and know that he is capable of, this secondary will be so much better than last year. A huge reason why the Philadelphia Eagles defense was 30th in points allowed. A big reason why they were 31st in pass defense last year was because their safeties were ill-equipped for the job that was asked of them. They even tried trading for Kevin Byard in the middle of the season, and that didn't even work. So they didn't just overhaul the secondary. They overhauled the defensive coaching staff. So now, can C.J. Gardner-Johnson excel in this Fangio defense? Remember, Fangio has had some good players over the years in his secondary. He's had guys like Justin Simmons and Eddie Jackson. He has coached some very good secondary players over the years. And if CJ can be that extension of Fangio on the field, you know that they will be better this year, because I guarantee you then they will not be one of the worst pass defenses, one of the worst scoring defenses in all of football. They won't be that anymore. They will be way better if CJ, all right, is playing to the level he expects. All right, or should I say we expect of him. The number 3 player that I'm looking at that is not named Jalen Hurts, has to have a good year for the Eagles to have a successful season, is Devin White. Devin White was a player who was drafted in the top 10 of the NFL drafts out of college. His first 2 years in the NFL, he was an absolute dynamo, an absolute force of nature. Helped the Buccaneers win the Super Bowl. But the last couple of years, he kind of fell out of favor in Tampa. There is speculation that he was not very coachable near the end of his tenure. He got, kind of lazy. He was basically making plays on instinct, not because he actually knew what he was supposed to be doing. And so now he comes to Philadelphia on a prove-it contract, right? Vic Fangio now has the task to get this guy up to speed. And remember, Fangio has a lot of experience working with linebackers. Mike Peterson with the Indianapolis Colts, Navarro Bowman and Patrick Willis with San Francisco 49ers. He had Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan down there in Chicago. And then last year in Miami, he turned Andrew Van Winkle into basically a joker type of linebacker where he was playing all up and down the field. He was a wild card as a blitzer and as a coverage guy. Devin White is as athletic and as gifted, if not more, than every player I just named. The young man's potential is limitless as a linebacker, but he has to be focused. He has to be committed to winning. And if he is that, if he is committed to winning, and by the way, he will make more money if he commits himself to win. If he shows himself out this year in Philadelphia, he is in store for a massive contract in free agency. And also, the Eagles defense will be better than it was last year because guess what? Zach Cunningham, Shaq Leonard and company, Nicholas Morrow, they didn't cut it. There's a reason why all three of those guys are not back this year. That's my number 3, Devin White. Number 4, player not named Jalen Hurts that has to have a good season in order for you to go deep and make a Super Bowl run. Saquon Barkley. You don't give a running back that much money, that much years, if you don't believe he can give you Christian McCaffrey level production. Saquon Barkley has to get at minimum 1,400 rushing yards and 800 receiving yards for us to look at him as a guy who's worthy of that contract. Maybe not literally those numbers. It could be any variation of just a player who goes out there and looks anywhere close to a Christian McCaffrey, LaDainian Tomlinson, Marshall Faulk style of player, right? A guy who could be a threat running the ball, receiving the ball. He said himself, teams like the Eagles looked at him as an offensive weapon. Well, I need you to look like an offensive weapon, Saquon. Number 5, Cam Jurgens. I feel like this one goes without saying, but I'll just say it anyway. Just because Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman and company are all excited and confident in this young man doesn't mean that I am just going to say, oh yeah, whatever you guys say. I'm not the kind of person. I need to see that all of the learning and the studying and everything that happened with Jason Kelce, Cam Jurgens actually absorbed and soaked it up like a sponge and is just going to go out there and fall on his face. Now, look, I do believe he can be a very good center in this league, but can he be a all-pro level one day? People forget Jason Kelce took years before he turned into the all-pro caliber center that built a Hall of Fame resume. Remember, it wasn't until 2017 that Jason Kelce was selected to his first all-pro team. That means he started for 6 years before he ever got to the level that we think of him as. I remember people wanting to run him out of town. I remember the bad Bengals game in 2016. I remember the Lions game in 2015. I remember the bad games that Kelce had, and people would be saying, get this guy out of town. He sucks. Get rid of him. Am I supposed to believe that Cam Jurgens, day one, is going to be Jason Kelce? It's absolutely impossible. Jurgens has to show up and do his job at a level that is better than above average for this offensive line to keep running the way it's been running for the last several years. Can he do it? Yes. Will he do it? We're going to find out. We'll talk more about the Eagles coming next with Dave Weinberg here on 97.3 ESPN FM, 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Seattle. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a Thursday night.
97.3 ESPN has teamed up with Seize the Deal for incredible weekly offers from some fantastic local restaurants. Here's this week's big deal. Get a $50 gift card good for use at La Fontana Coast in Sea Isle City for just $25. Get this great deal starting Friday at 9 a.m. at seizethedeal.com. Hurry, chances are this deal will sell quickly. For more info on this great deal, go to seizethedeal.com.
Hi, I'm Cesar Milan. People are always commenting on how happy and healthy my dogs are. One of the reasons is the food my dogs eat.
Dr. Marty's Nature's Blend is a premium freeze-dried raw dog food designed to support your dog's health, happiness, and lifespan.
Their jaws are more flexible, their teeth are cleaner, and their coats shinier. And why they seem more youthful even as they age.
I'm veterinarian Dr. Marty Goldstein. I've helped countless dogs thrive with one simple concept. Your dog needs a high-meat diet similar to what their ancestors ate in the wild.
Dr. Marty created Nature's Blend using 50 years of nutritional research and experience, helping dogs make incredible turnarounds. Save up to 54% off Nature's Blend and get a free bag of Cod Krispies, their wild-caught, ultra-crunchy cod skin treats. Go to drmartypets.com/deal or text DEAL to 511-511.
Your order is backed with a 90-day guarantee.
All dogs are unique. Your dog results can and will vary. Message and data rates may apply.
Meet DJ, the Master Penny Pincher.
I'm always looking for ways to lower my electric bill. My new smart meter from Atlantic City Electric makes it a lot easier to save energy and money. I took a few minutes, logged into my account, and unlocked some cool tools like high usage alerts and customized energy saving tips I can see right on my phone. I'd say that's a pretty smart move.
We couldn't agree more, DJ. To unlock all the energy-saving benefits of your new smart meter, sign up for my account at AtlanticCityElectric.com/smartmove.
Total Wireless is made to totally keep up with you. We now have unlimited data that never slows you down. Covered by the Verizon 5G network. And for less than $30 a month, we make your phone your ride or die. Switch now and pick a free 5G phone with qualified plan purchase. And your fourth line at no additional cost. Visit your local Total Wireless store today. Total Wireless, we're totally with you. Actual speeds may vary by location. For data management practices, see TotalWireless.com.
Powered by the all-new BetParks New Jersey Casino and Sportsbook app. BetParks.com. This is the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network.
Are Philly fans ready for yet another heartbreak? I'm Nick Earnshaw with your South Jersey Sports Center and with your 97.3 ESPN question of the day. The Phillies are slumping right now as they are 3-7 in their last 10 games. As everyone saw the Eagles and Flyers collapse at the end of their seasons, it has Phillies fans worried if it can happen to the baseball team. With that being said, our 97.3 ESPN question of the day is, how worried are you about the Phillies sustaining this cold streak? Let us know by texting 609-403-0973 or use the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. I'm not too worried. I think the Phillies will come out of this little rut that they are in. They've struggled since the All-Star break. Every team's going to go through this. The team that just swept them, the Yankees, also went through something similar not too long ago. So I think the bats are just cold right now. Nothing can go right, but at some point they'll get out of it because they are a resilient group of players. Once again, text in at 609-403-0973. Your forecast is next.
From playtime to showtime, Atlantic City always serves classic summer fun with a twist of cool. Visit AtlanticCityNJ.com to win an overnight getaway.
From the Town Square, New Jersey Info and Weather Network, I'm Chief Meteorologist Dan Zarrow. Hot summer days, uncomfortable and suffocating. Hot summer nights can be even worse. Warm and steamy tonight. Thermometers only drop to around 76 by morning with a few clouds and maybe an isolated shower. Clouds and sun tomorrow, high 92. Chance of a shower at any time. Better chance of scattered thunderstorms tomorrow night. Really humid and still hot this weekend with a few showers and thunderstorms around 2. Get weather 24/7 wherever you are. Download our free mobile app today.
Hey, it's Tom P., host of Rack and Fin Radio, inviting you to join me every Saturday morning at 7 here on 97.3 ESPN FM. Each week, we discuss the hot topics affecting the sportsmen and sportswomen in New Jersey. Hunting, fishing, boating, conservation, and Second Amendment topics are some of the issues that are covered in depth.
Rack and Fin Radio is brought to you by Utch's Marina.
That's Rack and Fin Radio with me, Tom P., every Saturday morning at 7 on 97.3 ESPN FM, South Jersey's sports leader.
This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
We'll get your text a little bit later in the hour. David from Vineland, as well as Jeff from Ocean City. Your text at 609-403-0973. Right now, joining us on the show, he usually is on a Wednesday, but we had to swap him to a Thursday because he's a busy man, that Dave Weinberg, Extra Point Columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. And he joins me from his car here on 97.3 ESPN. How you doing, Dave?
I'm doing well, Josh. I'm actually on my way into trivia at Stella Maris in Lower Township, but I couldn't pass up this opportunity to talk to you.
So let's start with this first of all. I talked about the Eagles before you came on. So I came up with my list of guys who are going to be essential to this team winning, not named Jalen Hurts, not named Nick Sirianni, right? I feel like we've all to a nauseating point talked about the head coach and the quarterback. And right. I want to ask you real quick, because my number one guy on the list is Jalen Carter, because to me, he has huge shoes to fill. People don't fully realize that Fletcher Cox was such an important force of nature on that D-line for years. Now he's gone. He's retired. He ain't walking through that door to go Rick Pitino on it. So, to you, how important is Jalen Carter to the success of this team this year?
Yeah, extremely important. Both him and Jordan Davis, and I guess you can put Melton Williams in there as well. Yeah, I mean, everybody knows the interior of the defensive line is kind of like the anchor of everything, and not having Fletcher is a loss, no question about it. But I mean, those guys both, Davis and Carter anyway, they both struggled last year at the end, and that was kind of a major reason why I think they had the collapse that they did. So it's incumbent upon them I guess they came into camp in pretty good shape, but they have to maintain that throughout the season. And if the Eagles are going to succeed this season, I think.
So just to give you my top five, and you can tell me if you think I'm missing anyone. Okay.
Okay.
So my top five.
I'm sorry. What's the category now? Top five.
So it's top five most important players for the Eagles' success this year, not named Jalen Hurts or Nick Sirianni.
Okay. Got it. Go.
So my number one was Jalen Carter.
Okay.
My number two was C.J. Garner-Johnson. My number three is Saquon Barkley. My number four is Devin White. And my number five, and not least, not five because he's the least, but five because I'm listing five guys. Cam Jurgens replacing Jason Kelce.
Yeah, I would put him probably higher, a little bit higher up. But yeah, those are a good five. I mean, Jurgens has enormous pressure on him, replacing the legend like Jason. He's not going to be, Jason Kelce by any stretch, but I do think he's going to surprise some people. I think that he'll turn out to be at least a serviceable center, and probably better than that for the first couple of years before he really finds his niche. But I think he has a lot of potential. I think I might have. I know it gets overlooked a lot or kind of forgotten, but I put Jake Elliott in there too. He's the best kicker in the league. He was a major reason why they got off to the start that they did last year. And the kickers are always they're kind of like by the wayside until you really need them, and then you find out what if you have a good one or not. And they have a great one in Jake, and I'm looking forward to see if he can maintain that pace that he set for the last couple of years.
Yeah, see, my concern with Cam Jurgens is this, because I understand that Howie Roseman and Jeff Stoutland and Nick Sirianni, they're all talking about how, well, Cam Jurgens, he learned from Jason Kelce, and he spent 2 years studying under him.
Yeah.
I keep thinking, but Jason wasn't an all-pro until his 7th year. People remember Jason for the last thing they saw. I remember, Dave, when they tried to run Kelce out of town after the Bengals game and after the Lions game, and there were games where it was like, people in this town hated the dude. And it's like people forget that it took him 7 years to get to that level. And now we're asking Cam Jurgens to do it his first year starting at center?
Yeah, that's unrealistic. You're right there. I mean, it takes guys time to learn the nuances of the position, to blend with your teammates, and the centers. Aside from the quarterback, he's probably the most important guy on your offense. So it's gonna take him a while to assume that role, that leadership role, and to make the calls, get comfortable with that. And you're right. I mean, you're right. Jason didn't really hit his peak for a few years, and like 6-7 years, and then he had a little bit of a lull. I think, like not in the last couple of years, but the couple of years before that. It seemed like he was kind of like at the end of the line there, and then he had that resurgence. But yeah, they shouldn't expect too much from Cam. I mean, he's not going to be like a Hall of Famer, but then again, like you said, Jason wasn't either for the first 6-7 years.
Dave, think about also with the Eagles over the years as they're having the public open practice today.
Yeah.
Which is always more like a showcase for the fans than anything else. I mean, let's be honest.
Right,
but
right.
One of the things I am curious about is I am getting 2017 vibes on one specific position with this year's team.
Okay.
You remember 2017 left guard, right? It was Chance Warmack. It was Stefan Wisniewski. It was Isaac Seumalo. All those guys were in camp. But in the biggest game of the year, it wasn't Warmack at left guard. It was Wisniewski, right? So,
right.
And I'm looking at right guard this year and it's like, well, Tyler Steen, well, Mekhi Becton, well, they bring in now Nick Gates. Like, I feel like whoever is in camp right now might not even be the starter by the time we get through halfway through the season, because I'm looking at right guard. I don't see anybody stealing that job yet.
No, they're not. I mean, Steen was supposed to have the first shot, but from what I understand, Becton's getting the majority of the reps with the starters right now. So I guess it's maybe his job to lose. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it very well could be that there's once they have cuts and stuff at the end of the year, that and the end of training camp, that somebody might pop up there that kind of intrigues them. They want to bring in maybe a veteran with a little bit more experience as a starter, and maybe he was like a salary cap casualty, or maybe the team drafted a younger guy that they think more of, but the guy is still serviceable. So yeah, I could definitely see that scenario where they bring in a guy, at the end of the summer to be their starter.
Talking with Dave Weinberg here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. Extra Point columns over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Dave, a couple more things before I let you go. I gotta touch on with you about Mike Trout, the news that came out today. He re-tore his meniscus. He had surgery. He announced that he will be done for the rest of the year. Just your thoughts on it, because aside from being a baseball guy, you covered Mike Trout for years when he was in high school down here. We know that he's a phenomenal athlete, but it's starting. I hate putting it this way, but it's starting to give me like Mickey Mantle vibes. Like Mantle could have been even more if his knees would have held up.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort. I've seen a few national talk shows in the last few days, and when I was found out they had another setback, so-called. But now that he's out for the year, it's the guy is really like snake bitten. I feel so bad for him that he has immense talent. He's such a nice guy. Does so much for South Jersey community and Millville in particular. A strong family man and an amazing baseball player when he's healthy, but again, like Mantle, like some other guys, he can't stay healthy, and it's starting to get a really disappointing end to his career. I mean, he was on track to be one of the all-time greats, and now all of a sudden, the last 3, 4, maybe even 5 years, there's been various setbacks and injuries, and even some freak accidents that you never didn't anticipate. And I hope that he comes back healthy. I strongly wish. I think the game needs it. I think he definitely needs it. I think the Angels fans, if he stays in LA, which I think he will, I think they need it. So hopefully he'll find a way back. I mean, the people have been talking about retirement and going to, various other pursuits like his golf course or what have you. But I can't see that yet. I think he's way too competitive to go out like this.
I think he's going to come back. And he's going to come back and be great again. Like you said, some of these injuries have been like fluky, freak kind of stuff. They haven't been like because he's like a damaged individual. Like he was a stud for all those years, playing year in and year out, winning MVPs. So, but maybe this is a blessing in disguise. Maybe him not coming back prevents him from injuring something else for all we know. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe let him take a whole off season to get better. Because remember, we are 2 years removed from him hitting 40 homers in a year.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
I mean, if he comes back, hits another 40 homers next year, and let's say, I don't know, has 80 RBI or something, right? If he goes 40 and 80 again, he's going to be right back in that, great player in the league conversation.
Yeah, I mean, he had 10 homers in the first 2 weeks of the year this year, I think. So,
it was nuts.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, you know what kind of player he is and what kind of person he is, and everybody around us area does. So, yeah, I'm really wishing the best for him, and that he comes back stronger than ever.
Another time I want to hit on with you, Dave, is you and I were both at Tropicana in Atlantic City on Friday night for the boxing. And, as someone who has covered boxing for as long as you have, for those who don't know, Dave Weinberg is a boxing Hall of Fame writer, has covered boxing for decades. I really felt like that what I saw from Justin Figueroa and Bruce Seldon Jr. saw legitimate major improvement for both men from their last fight to what we saw on Friday night.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, especially with Bruce. I mean, he is so raw. He had no amateur background at all. He's 29 years old. So, yeah, I mean, you could tell that he was a little nervous in his first fight. I don't know if you saw it, but he was, really rough around the edges. He showed polish the other night. He showed command of the ring. He showed up, worked his jab, worked the body. Got hit a little bit in the first round, but made great adjustments, which is a credit to his trainer, Julio Sanchez. And yeah, I think the sky's the limit for Bruce. Justin, same thing. I mean, again, with these guys, you got to wonder, the level of opposition. I think Justin's reaching the point now at 10-0 where he's going to have to maybe. I know the guy had a decent record, but you could tell he wasn't in the same league as Justin the other night. And so, to his credit, Justin did what he's supposed to do, which is get guys out of there like that. So, and he did. So, but I think at 10-0, it's time for him to maybe step up a little bit for the level of competition, and they maybe take on a guy who's closer to his ability to find out what they have there.
The most impressive win of the night was Otto Whalen. First round knockout. I mean, one punch, the dude was done. I mean, I mean, Dave, I got to be honest. I remember watching him against Fury and Joshua and thought, this guy's a pretty tough, pretty good fighter. But seeing him then go against somebody of a much lesser competition and completely wiping the ring with the guy, I mean, that was wild.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually sitting next to Jolene Mazzone, who's his manager and also manages Justin, and she was she wanted to see him get his confidence back, get a win again after the Joshua and Fury fights, and just to build himself up again. And people don't realize he's one of the top 15 heavyweights in the world, and you saw why the other night. I mean, but I don't think anybody expected 48 seconds or whatever it was. It was just like you said, one punch, the guy's doing a somersault across the ring. The Grant, again, not the best opponent, but still, I mean, Otto had a tremendous performance, and that should do wonders for his career going forward.
I mean, with the, I don't even know what to say the heavyweight division is right now. I'm honestly confused. So I mean,
yeah, I don't even know half the guys.
I mean, is he a guy that can get back on the ladder quickly? Is that a realistic expectation, or do you think it's gonna take a couple of years?
No, I think he is. I mean, I think he's got the talent to come back. I mean, like you said, his only 2 losses are to Fury and Joshua, and that's no slouch. I mean, I definitely think that he could be back in the picture relatively quickly. I don't think it's going to take him much time at all. Like you said, the heavyweight division, I'm not sure. Again, Usyk gave up his titles, did he? I'm not sure, but he's probably the class of the heavyweight division. But after that, there's a mix of guys, like Fury and Joshua and all the rest who, have various titles. So I think Whalen's right there with them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the WBA rankings right now. I mean, yeah, I know Usyk is the super champion. He's got the WBA, WBC, WBO belts. But I got to be honest, outside of Tyson Fury, Michael Hunter, I don't even recognize any of these guys. I mean, so, I mean,
who are they? Just curious. Who else is in there?
Martin Bacoli.
You could tell me he played linebacker for the Eagles.
Lanier Perro. Mike Perez. I don't even know how to say this one guy's name. It's
that's
Chinese.
okay.
It's like Zhe Li Zhang, I guess how you say it.
That's the thing with the heavyweight division. The talent pool is so thin that if you're big and you can punch and you get a couple wins together, you're going to be in the picture, and people are going to start paying attention. So that's probably what these guys are. They're probably like 12-0, 14-0 with 13 knockouts, and they've knocked out a bunch of bums. But now all of a sudden they're in the top 10 rankings.
See, that's a shame though, because like the heavyweight division was like the premier division of boxing.
Oh my gosh, it sure was. Yeah,
And it's like what you described, Dave. You know what that was? That was the UFC heavyweight division, like in the early 2000s. That's literally what it was. It was like you had a bunch of dudes who was just like would knock people out, and there was like one legitimate guy for like years. Like that's what you just described what MMA was 2 decades ago. You just said about the current heavyweight division of boxing.
Yeah, it was like Cain Velasquez and a bunch of nobodies, right?
I'm going back before that. I mean,
okay.
I'm going back to like when Tim Sylvia won the belt.
Oh,
and it was,
okay, all right. Well, I actually saw him fight in Atlantic City.
Yeah, I think that was what 2005. I think it was.
Yep.
Yeah, but like when guys like him, like they were winning the belt, and you were like, look at their resume, and you're like, well, I guess he beat somebody. Like you weren't impressed by the resume at all.
Right. Yeah. It was like that was a pretty much unproven division back then. Right? It was just like a bunch of tough guys who were big and strong and mean and could hit a little bit. Yep.
Yeah,
now
I
it's
mean,
way more well-rounded in their games and.
Oh my gosh! I mean, now, I mean, these guys actually have legitimate training camps, and they're actually like, for as much as we joke about Francis Ngannou going from MMA to boxing, the reality is that in MMA, he's a legitimate scary striker, and he's a guy that Stipe Miocic, who was a Golden Gloves boxer and a collegiate wrestler, he had trouble with Francisco Ngannou in MMA, and so it's like. MMA is way different today with heavyweight than it was 15, 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. No question about it.
But back to the boxing, like it's a shame that we just named a bunch of guys who are in the rankings of one of the major organizations, and you and I are just like making jokes about them.
Yeah, I mean, like even back like as far as like the 2000s, I guess, or maybe a little earlier with Lennox Lewis running the division, but you had seen Rockman and David Tua and guys like that who were legitimate heavyweight contenders, and now it's so watered down. It's really a shame because you were right. Back in the day, I hate to keep saying that, but from back a few decades ago, the heavyweight division was the premier division of boxing, and everybody knew who the heavyweight champion was. Everybody followed him. Everybody wanted to be him, and that was must-see TV with Tyson and Holyfield and Foreman and Lennox Lewis after that. It's really a shame what the division has become.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dave Weinberg joining us. Extra point columns over at 973ESPN.com. He usually joins me on a Wednesday, but we had to swap him to a Thursday. So, Dave, I appreciate you checking in from your car, and you're now going to go play trivia.
My pleasure, Josh. Thanks again, as always. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Dave Weinberg joining us here on 97.3 ESPN. Yeah, I mean, watching Otto Whalen on Friday night at Tropicana Showroom in Atlantic City just absolutely wreck his opponent was something to watch. And it just shows you there is a massive gap in boxing between who they are at the lower level of the rung and then who they are at the top of the rung. You know what I mean? And like Otto Whalen went the distance with both Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. He was a dominator, knocked out by those guys. So when you think about what Dave just said, he's like, oh, it's just a bunch of guys and who have knockout power. And you're just like, ugh. And then that reminds me of what MMA used to be, because, anyone who knows MMA history knows that, no offense to guys like Mark Coleman and Kevin Randleman, and I mentioned Tim Sylvia, Josh Barnett, trying to think of some other like random names who won it back in the day. I mean, I remember Shane Carwin. I remember when he won at one point, Brock Lesnar, like all those guys, they weren't like elite fighters. They were just powerhouse wrestlers who learned how to punch. And they eventually got really good at fighting, right? And it was just so bizarre that you had this era of MMA where these guys, it was not your traditional, right? It wasn't your, it wasn't what you would expect from the top fighters in the world. You know, the idea used to be that, you know, the best of the best, right? You know, it was the baddest man on the planet was the heavyweight champion in boxing. And then he tried to bring that same narrative over to MMA and it just didn't line up. It didn't make sense. And for years, like Dave just described with boxing, you just had a bunch of big, powerful dudes who would punch each other really hard and they would win. And then, you know, when MMA made the change from, when MMA made the change from just a bunch of dudes who are like monster athletes to actually being I hate putting it this way, but calling it a legitimate sport. I hate putting it that way, but there was a time where MMA was dominated by guys who were just strong and powerful, especially at the heavyweight division level. A lot of guys who were former wrestlers who learned enough about the other aspects of mixed martial arts so they could be beat people, right? And they just happened to be the, you know, big bad powerhouse punchers. The first guy that actually won when you realized that MMA, at least for the heavyweights, was making the transition from just a bunch of big, powerful dudes who could knock people out to guys being skilled, you have to go back to the Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos trilogy. Because when Cain Velasquez beat Brock Lesnar, he beat him so bad that Lesnar basically didn't want to fight anymore initially. And Velasquez went on to defend the belt 4 times. He only lost basically the 2 guys in his prime, Junior Dos Santos, Fabricio Verdum. But all the guys I just named, JDS, Velasquez, Verdum, these were all high-level, highly skilled martial arts tacticians. You know, Velasquez was elite as a wrestler in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and in kickboxing. Junior Dos Santos was elite in terms of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and he used his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to keep people standing because he knew his boxing was elite. And then Fabricio Verdum was a championship Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappler. So you had guys who made that transition from just being these big, massive monster of human beings, you know, your Brock Lesnar's, your Shane Carwin's, your Tim Sylvia's, I mentioned Josh Barnett, Kevin Randleman. And so when you made that transition, that's when it became, to me, a more legitimate sport. And that's why when we talk about the greatest fighters of all time, if they're anyone over the weight of 170 pounds, you're talking about guys who fought in the last 15 to 20 years. You don't even think about anybody before that time because a lot of those guys were just winning fights because they were just bigger and better and stronger. They weren't winning because they were actually skilled. And that's the problem with modern boxing now. Modern boxing is just a bunch of dudes who are big and are powerful, can throw big punches. And it's less enjoyable. And I'm hoping that Otto Whalen makes a run at a championship because I would like to see somebody who's got some skill be given that opportunity to be a dominant champion because I think it will look better for the sport of boxing. You know, Tyson Fury, for as talented as it gets as he was, he even got complacent and lost. So keep that in mind when you think about boxing. You know, a lot of the skill with boxing today is at the lower weight classes, and it's a shame. All right. Jeff from Oceans today, David and Violin, your text. Coming up next and more, 609-403-0973. Josh Hennig hanging out with you on a Thursday night.
Hi, this is Billy Schwein from the locker room. Join me and former chief of the Longport Beach Patrol, Dan Adams, and former lieutenants from the Ocean City Beach Patrol, John McShane and Jack Brooks, as we broadcast the Margate Memorial Lifeguard Races live Friday night from 6 to 8 p.m. from the beach in Margate.
This special broadcast of the 2024 Margate Memorial Lifeguard Races is being brought to you by Dino's Subs and Pizza of Margate. Family owned and operated since 1964, offering dine-in or takeout. McCann Realtors of Sea Isle City, a family tradition for sales and rentals since 1939. 96 Shades, Jersey Shore's largest selection of name brand sunglasses, with the most knowledgeable customer service since 2007. The Locker Room with Billy Schwein's live broadcast of the 2024 Margate Memorial Lifeguard Races tomorrow night at 6 p.m. on 97.3 ESPN.
Summer's just getting started, so fill your cooler with the smooth and refreshing taste of Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. It tastes like real iced tea because it's made with real brewed tea. And with a 5% kick of alcohol, Twisted Tea is perfect for the beach, the lake, or wherever you're hanging out and day drinking with your friends. Look for the bright yellow cans. Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. Keep it twisted.
Twisted Tea Brewing Company, Cincinnati, Ohio. Please drink responsibly.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Welcome to AutoZone. What are you working on today? Starting trouble. No one likes that. We can get you set up for some stronger starts. You might just need a fresh charge, and we can take care of that free of charge. But if it is time for a new battery, we've got replacement batteries that'll fit your needs, starting at just $79.99. That's what makes us America's #1 battery destination.
Get in zone, AutoZone.
Restrictions apply.
Guess what, people? Wendy's has new saucy nugs. You heard me. Wendy's nugs now come in 7 saucy flavors. Buffalo, honey barbecue, garlic parm, spicy ghost pepper. You can literally hear your taste buds after every bite. I'm serious. Listen to mine. Okay, that's just me playing with sound effects, but you got the idea. For a whole new way to nug, gotta be Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's.
Total Wireless is made to totally keep up with you. We now have unlimited data that never slows you down. Covered by the Verizon 5G network. And for less than $30 a month, we make your phone your ride or die. Switch now and pick a free 5G phone with qualified plan purchase. And your 4th line at no additional cost. Visit your local Total Wireless store today. Total Wireless, we're totally with you. Actual speeds may vary by location. For data management practices, see TotalWireless.com.
Find what you love, love what you find. A Total Wine and More. There's so much waiting for you. Spirits and beer, thousands of wines. Guides in the know and prices so low, it just might blow your mind. You're gonna find what you love and love what you find.
Only at Total Wine and More. Drink responsibly. Be 21.
Home ownership. At Progressive, we know it's part of the American dream. It's the land of the free and the home of student drivers ready to back into your new fence at any given time. It's firing up a round of burgers and dogs on your rusty grill with a faulty gas line that engulfs your tool shed in flames. It's also around-the-clock protection when you bundle your home and auto with Progressive, which can help keep the American dream of home ownership alive and kicking. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Not available in all states.
A Gain Scent Bead story. Jim was at the laundromat when he heard his ear said, "Maraca, senor," but his nose said, "Hey, freshest scent ever." Following his nose, Jim found a man pouring a bottle of Gain Scent Beads into the washer. The scent, the freshness. Jim blurted, "Sir, your scent Maraca smell amazing." Actually, Jim, most noses call them Gain Scent Beads. Try Gain Scent Beads, way fresher than detergent alone.
Something good to know from First Bank of Sea Isle City. We have all of today's innovative banking products just like the big banks, but we offer something they can't. A personal community focus. Let's get you started with Bill Pay. You save time when you pay your bills online. It's fast, easy, and convenient. First Bank of Sea Isle City. A community bank that delivers more for you every day. Personal service, today's technology, from the people who truly care. Learn more at firstbankseaisle.com.
Member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
All right, as promised, your texts right now, 609-403-0973, your DMs into 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle. Jeff from Ocean City chimed in earlier and said, Josh, my biggest question coming into this season was Jalen Hurts, and I'm encouraged by the camp reports thus far. Jeff, and I understand. That's why I said my list was not Jalen Hurts, because of the fact that part of the problem with a lot of these conversations is that I understand the quarterback is the most important position in sports, but also we all got to remember the quarterback can't do everything. Remember Giselle had that rant where she's like, Tom can't throw and catch the football, and we all kind of like joked like, all right, we get it. You're defending your husband, blah, blah, blah. But there is something to be said for the fact that we have seen throughout football history that if the receivers don't catch and the offensive line can't block and the defense can't stop anybody, then it doesn't matter who your quarterback is. Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl. You know who won a Super Bowl? Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, not Hall of Famers. You know who's got a ring? Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco, Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson are not even anywhere near Dan Marino's level. John Elway couldn't win a championship because he didn't have good enough teams. As soon as he got more Hall of Famers around him on the Denver Broncos, he won 2 rings. In order to win the Super Bowl, the biggest game of the year, the players around you matter. And that's why I understand people's concern with Hurts, but I'm more concerned with the rest of the team. I'm concerned about the coaching staff. I'm concerned about the other people around the quarterback, because I think those people are just as important, if not more important, than the quarterback. Because you saw last year, I told you the stat earlier, the Eagles were 30th most points allowed. You don't think that the defense wasn't so poor, wasn't so atrocious, they couldn't have beat the Cardinals and the Seahawks down the stretch? Come on. Of course they would have. David in Violin chimes in on the text board at 609-403-0973. Now, David agrees with David from Violin. Hold on. Agrees with Dave Weinberg, because they both mentioned Jake Elliott, because he says Jake Elliott is number one player, has to have a good season. Listen, you guys are right. He had a difficult time last year, not because he had a bad season, but because he basically had to carry the team at times. There were points in time last year where it felt like Jake Elliott was carrying that team. He was having to do all the work. And so I do agree. Jake Elliott has to have another good performance here, but I think he will. I'm not worried about Jake Elliott. See, the guys that I was naming are guys I'm worried about, David and Violin. I'm not worried about Jake Elliott. Jake Elliott is 29 years old, okay? The guy isn't even close to being near the end of his career at this point. I'm talking about guys. The reason why I mention guys like Jalen Carter and Devin White and CJ Gardner-Johnson and Cam Jurgens and Saquon Barkley, because there are questions about those guys. I don't have questions about Jake Elliott. He would never be on my list. Also, Jake Elliott's a great guy. I met Jake Elliott. I didn't meet the other guys. I know personally that Jake Elliott's ready for the season. I can't speak for anybody else. Thanks again to Dave Weinberg for joining the show. Just a reminder, as you heard the promo from Billy Schweim earlier, I will not be on Game Night tomorrow. Billy Schweim, the locker room of the live special broadcast of the Margate Memorial Lifeguard Races here tomorrow night on 97.3 ESPN. I will be producing with Mike Gill live in the studio while Mike Gill is on location at Charlie's Summers Point tomorrow. But no Game Night tomorrow night. I'll be back in the studio keeping Billy Schweim on the air, directing traffic here on 97.3 ESPN. Have a great night, everybody. Catch you next time.
Unsportsmanlike with Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, and Michelle Smallman.
This is a show and prove year, not just for Jalen Hurts, but for Nick Sirianni. Can you provide the leadership, the guidance, and the answers for your players when you hit that inevitable adversity? And 8 Ball says doubtful in my book. I haven't seen anything to show me that Nick Sirianni is going to be a championship-winning coach.
Wake up weekday mornings with Unsportsmanlike with Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, and Michelle Smallman on 97.3 ESPN.